First, in Washington, a passenger flight and a U.S. Army helicopter collided Wednesday night over Washington, D.C. It was the first major plane crash in the United States in 16 years. No survivors have been pulled from the freezing Potomac River, where that American Airlines plane crashed with 64 people on board, though. We did hear from the D.C. fire chief earlier, though, who said that it was unlikely that there were any survivors. We're going to talk more about this now with France 24's Fraser Jackson. Fraser, there was a press conference that was held not long ago with more details. What else came out of that?
Yeah, we're getting slowly more information since we left the airport early this morning. We now know that the early reports of survivors were false, and that now it is feared that everybody on board that flight and also the helicopter are now feared dead. So far we know that 28 bodies have been recovered, 27 from the plane, 1 from the helicopter. We've heard from the US figure skating team who said that several members of their community were on board that plane, and the DC fire chief, and this is quite a marked change and I think really speaks to the shift in tone, he announced that the operations have switched from rescue mode to recovery mode. We also heard from Secretary Duffy, the recently confirmed Transport Secretary. He confirmed just on Tuesday. He told senators during his confirmation process earlier this week that he wanted to focus on improving aviation and highway safety. Well, he announced that the plane is now in 3 pieces upside down in the Potomac River, and said that there was not a breakdown in communication. He said that the aircraft was in communication with air traffic control, and ATC was also in contact with the military aircraft as well. He said that the helicopter was aware there was a plane in the area and said, quote, "I think this was preventable." We also heard from the American Airlines CEO who was there at that press conference as well. He said that he didn't know why this helicopter came into the path of this civilian flight crew, and more importantly, we're also learning that this rescue operation, which is now switched to the recovery operation, is now being handed off to the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board. They are used to doing this kind of thing. This is their bread and butter. They have been involved with some of the most famous plane crashes in the world, including the 737 MAX crashes, the Lion Air crash, and also the Ethiopian Airlines crash as well. So they will be now investigating how something like this could have happened in DC's airspace, despite the fact that it is such a congested part of the United States airspace.
Fraser, as you were saying, the new transportation secretary was saying that this was, in his words, absolutely preventable, that it was a clear night, Wednesday night. I mean, I know this is just getting underway. Do we have any more details on an investigation or what exactly might have happened?
Well, exactly now, the details are still relatively thin on the ground. What we do know is, of course, this CRJ 700 jet, the American Airlines plane that left Wichita, Kansas, was on final approach to the eastern part of DCA Airport. And we heard that that was a relatively last-minute switch from the main runway landing that would have brought them in from the north. And then this aircraft was coming in from the eastern part of DC and scheduled to land just before 9 p.m. local time when this helicopter seemingly came into the flight path of this plane and collided just short of the apron of the runway at 8:48 local time. So we now know that this collision happened just before 9 p.m. and both planes then landed in the water. And of course, seemingly no survivors from that crash now, but the questions as to why that helicopter was in that area are still abounding. We know that this military aircraft was on a training mission, but that shouldn't really say much about the level of skill of these pilots, because this is something that happens very frequently in the DC area. There are a lot of training missions that go up and down there. Of course, we're in the middle of the Federal Triangle. There are a lot of agencies, a lot of the Pentagon, the FBI, the CIA, all have their training bases not far from DC. So it is a relatively frequent and common occurrence to see military aircraft and see military helicopters in particular traveling along that section. But the exact reason as to why that helicopter was there at that specific moment is one of the main questions that investigators will have to answer.